How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the Hungry Guy Cooking. In today's video, I will be tackling Gordon Ramsay's most viewed recipe on YouTube, the slow roasted pork belly. You can also find it in his Ultimate Cookery Course cookbook. I actually had this recipe on my radar for several years now, but never gave it a try, as the flavor combination is way outside of my comfort zone. And it also uses white wine, which I am not fond of. But I am more mature now, and I want to expand my experiences with cooking and flavors, so my mentality is that anything deserves a try. As I only have an induction stovetop, I had to do some tweaking to Gordon's recipe in order to emulate what should be happening along the way. Let's take a look at the equipment you need. Nothing too strenuous here, and you should already have everything you need at home. Similarly with the ingredients, you should be able to get everything at a larger supermarket except for a whole pork belly joint and the fresh bay leaves. This will depend on your luck. But a trip to a butcher will certainly take care of your pork belly issues. I am looking for crispy skin, some balanced sauce, juicy and tender pork, and of course some amazing flavors. Let's get into it. Okay, I started with preheating the oven with the baking tray inside, preheating the frying pan and heating the stock, so that everything is ready when needed. Next step is scoring the pork belly. This is where you find out that your sharp knife is actually not sharp. Take your time and be careful here. The skin is very tough, but you will get that diamond pattern if you take your time. I got the salt and pepper in between the cracks. I would advise you to remove the bones if you have them, so that the meat is more flexible. In Gordon's video, it looked like he had the bones in, so I left mine in. In hindsight, it would have been better to take them out, as my pork was very tall and didn't get as much submersion as Gordon's did. I set it aside and started prepping fennel and garlic. I gave the fennel a rough chop, smashed the garlic, there's no need to cut it, just smash it with your knife and take off the skin. Also smash your cardamom pods to release the seeds. So far it's nice and simple, but now it's time to actually cook. I got my pan to the desired temperature on medium-high heat. I added the fennel, garlic, bay leaves, half of the fennel seeds, anise stars, cardamom pods, and fried them for 3 minutes. The smells coming from this were amazing. I pushed everything to the side and laid in my pork skin to brown it. It took around 3 minutes for me to get it nice and brown, and the results looked better than Gordon's on video. I sprinkled over the rest of the fennel seeds and added some additional salt. I've added the wine and the stock and brought it to boil. So far, everything was nice and simple and going well. Now I had to transfer everything to my baking tray that was preheating in the oven. I took the pork out of the pan, poured all its contents into the tray, and added the pork to the pan without any issues. Well, the pork was excited and decided to jump into the bath. Another good tip is to maintain a strong grip on your tongs. I was slightly worried as the level of submersion wasn't as high as Gordon's, but I just went with it. Popped it into the oven at 170 degrees Celsius with convection for 2.5 hours. My oven only has convection options. It came out looking delicious, but it might have been my hunger talking, as it came out much darker than Gordon's. I also needed to top it up with water as I was running out of liquids after around 2 hours. Baking is the most difficult part of the recipe, and you have to keep a close eye on it to ensure you don't burn the pork or the juices. Neither Gordon's video or his recipe mention any resting time, but I've rested mine for 20 minutes. I skimmed out the excess fat. There was a lot of it. A lot. Majority of the liquids in the pan were fat. I moved on to making the sauce with whatever I had left. Brought it to boil in a saucepan and removed more fat as it came to the top. Added the whole grain mustard and reduced it for a couple of minutes. It was initially very strong, so I added some water to reduce the intensity and some seasoning to taste. After resting the pork for 20 minutes, it came the time to cut it and I couldn't wait. It still looked delicious and the skin was nice and golden. The meat looked tender and juicy. It was finally time to try it. Let's sum up the tips for this recipe. Take your time with the scoring as the skin is very tough. Use a frying pan if you don't have a gas stovetop, and then transfer everything to a hot baking tray. Take out the bones if you have them. Make sure your pan matches the size of your pork so that you get the right submersion level. And reduce the temperature to 165 degrees Celsius if you are using convection. So, we managed to bake some pork belly. It looks delicious, has those lovely pork aromas. I think it came out a little darker than Gordon's, but it still looks delicious. Let's get into it. Let's start off with the skin. Ooh, nice and crispy. It is salty because all the salt we used to season the pork was on the skin. But still, delicious and very good crackling. Let's take a look at the sauce. Aromatics wise, there's a lot of wine coming through and a little bit of the whole grain mustard, as well as a little bit of the fennel seeds we added. But in terms of the cardamom pods and anise stars, there is no aromatics coming from them. I already tried it earlier, but I'll give it another try. It's very acidic, very sour, and you can feel that wine coming through. These are definitely not my pork belly flavors. Okay, let's get down to business. So the pork belly itself is nice and juicy, soft as well. Let's cut into it. Very soft, very tender. I was worried it was going to be under-seasoned, but there's definitely enough salt on the top layer. In terms of aromatics, you just get the pork. There are no other aromatics coming through. But still, a smell of a pork belly is great. Okay, let's try some of the pork with the sauce. So the pork definitely helps the sauce and takes off that acidic edge, but the sauce still overwhelms any other flavors coming from the pork, and you can just taste soury, winey sauce rather than the pork. Overall, if you like your pork with acidic and soury flavors with some notes of wine, then you should definitely try Gordon's recipe. If not, you can still take out the methods and technique he uses, as the pork is great in itself and it's very tender and moist. The recipe is very easy to follow and you can still do it even if you don't have a gas stove top. You just have to do your beginning stages in a frying pan rather than in the baking tray, transfer it to a hot baking tray and pop it into the oven. Did we achieve what we wanted to? We do have that crispy skin which dissolves in your mouth, which is great. The pork itself is nice and tender and juicy, but the sauce is overwhelmingly sour and the flavor combination is very wine heavy. My final score is 2 out of 5. The pork is great, but the sauce drags it down. If you tried Gordon's pork belly recipe yourself, please let me know in the comments your experiences. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like below. Thank you guys for watching and I'll see you next time.